Hello. This is a continuation of a 3-week session on the study of Joseph's dreams, focusing on Genesis chapters 37 through 41. We pick up where we left several weeks ago, prior to our interlude study on Judah and Tamar in Genesis 38. Jacob cannot be comforted because he thinks his favorite son Joseph is dead and suspects that his remaining sons have something to do with it. His sons have made up a story to explain Joseph's disappearance and are not sure if they themselves are guilty, and if so, for what. The story of Jacob and his sons is primarily about the continuation of the covenant with God. We continue our walk down that road, not with Jacob and sons in the Promised Land, but with Joseph in Egypt. This video will explore the details from the story of Joseph and Pontifar's wife in Genesis 39. Let's take a moment to read this next section of the saga of Joseph in Genesis 39, verses 1 through 20. Please pause the video now and read the next several slides or open to the chapter in your Bible. Key questions and areas we need to examine in Genesis 39 include: who is Pontifar and what is his role in Egypt? And what might have been Joseph's responsibilities and his job working for Pontifar? Leon Cass has a wonderful quote that's worth musing over for a few minutes. Genesis' ongoing exploration of the nature of the household, man and woman, and the meaning of sexuality, and how these matters are best regulated. Genesis 39 provides new material for the text's ongoing reflection of the understanding of visible body beauty and the problem of eros, especially for the life devoted to this new way with God. It also gives us new opportunity to examine the character of Joseph. We wonder, can Israel survive the encounter? Can and will Joseph preserve his identity? Can and will he safeguard his people? Joseph's entrance into Egypt is described as a descent, a bringing down. The descent is not only geographical, but also moral and political. Joseph, unlike Abraham, does not go down to Egypt voluntarily. He's brought down. Who is Pontifar? First look into Egypt reveals open slave trading. The first Egyptian man we meet serves his master, Pharaoh, buys and controls every aspect of other human beings. Lordship and bondage are the most evident Egyptian way. Pontifar was a slave owner. Pontifar is also described as an officer of Pharaoh's, but the primary reading of the word translated as officer, seris, means eunuch. The emasculation of male servants, a practice deemed necessary by the holding of many women in Pharaoh's harem, writes the meaning of Egyptian bondage right into the bodies of Pharaoh's highest service. Pontifar might have been a eunuch. The text in Genesis 39, verse 3, indicates that Joseph's master saw that the Lord was with him. How could Pontifar, who had never heard of, much less believed in, the power of Yahweh, see that Yahweh was with Joseph? What does the master see is that everything Joseph touches turns to his own advantage. That Joseph has what we would call the golden touch, or we might loosely say the gods are smiling on him, or he's one of the gods' favorites. Pontifar is impressed with Joseph, his talents and his successes. I'm not sure he's impressed or even knows Yahweh. But the Lord was with Joseph despite that all, and as a result, he does rise and prospers, and all of this is owed to the Lord's providence, not to Joseph's talents, not to good luck, but to the Lord's care and attention, and we as readers and believers understand that. But what are Joseph's real responsibilities? Only one matter does Pontifar not leave to Joseph: the bread that he did eat. And we see this in verse 6 in chapter 39. This could be a mere idiom signifying the withholding of nothing, meaning Pontifar's knowledge of his household was confined to what went into his mouth. The household for Pontifar had become just a place to feed. Alternately, the remark could have been taken literally. Pontifar entrusted everything to his Hebrew slave other than the ritually crucial matter of food. Later, we will learn that the Egyptians have strong food taboos and will not eat with outsiders. We'll discover this in Genesis chapter 43. Yet, here is also a third interpretation, supported by what comes next in the text. The bread that he ate could be a euphemism for wife. This is a euphemistic reading that offers the best logical linkage to the next comment in the text. And Joseph was a beautiful form and beautiful to look at. Verse 6. Quoting Leon Cass again, the identical words in the identical order were used to describe Joseph's mother, Rachel, in Genesis 29:17. In the context of explaining Jacob's choice of Rachel as his wages from Laban. Joseph is the only man in the entire Bible who is described this way. The text wants us to think of Joseph's beauty, like Rachel's beauty, how in the context of issues of sex and marriage. We are on the threshold of seeing how love of the beautiful may be at odds with the nature of marriage. Beauty we have had occasion to see before is a dangerous gift. Time for your opinion. What is going on here? Having pushed Pontifar's wife beyond the breaking point, Joseph, the pretending but reluctant lover, is caught by his own disguise. The false charge of sexual assault she now levels on against him is fitting, even if unjust, answer to his false assault on her sexual desire. Joseph, who has fled her chambers naked, or nearly so, is now exposed also to her wrath. As in so many cases of sexual harassment, the full truth about this episode is hard to uncover because the surface account is spare and the motives and the intentions invisible. At least 3 different versions seem both humanly plausible and consistent with the text. On the next 3 slides in your handout are 3 interpretations of this passage of Scripture. Genesis 39, 1 through 20, from Leon Cass's book, The Beginning of Wisdom, Reading Genesis. Please reread this passage and consider the following questions and write down some of your thoughts, please. Which of the versions below best fit your understanding of the text as is? And which versions below best fit your enhanced understanding with the information I have given? So I will forward the next 3 slides and pause a few seconds on each slide. You, of course, may halt your recording at any time to read in depth. Here we go. Well, we have 4 more issues to deal with, and we will discuss your opinions about what really happened during our Zoom meeting. But let's move on. These issues, the issue of the wife, Joseph's response, and his character questions we may have about Joseph. Did Joseph get pantsed? And what's that significance? And what about Pontifar's response? Do we agree with it and do we like it? The issue of the wife. According to most explanations and commentaries, very well summarized by Leon Cass, the most common readings are very unfriendly to Pontifar's wife. What we have here is an oversexed, lustful woman, the unsatisfied wife of Pharaoh's chief steward, who may have been a eunuch, propositioning a young, beautiful boy, a servant in her house who cannot escape because he's owned by her husband and who must therefore do her sexual bidding. Nahum Sarna agrees, and he writes in his book, there are no verbal preliminaries, no expression of love. Her peremptory mode of speech flows from her consciousness of Joseph's status as a slave. But other commentators are not so quick to blame the woman. The word the wife uses here, translated into English as to play, is the Hebrew word tasha, which can also mean to engage in sexual dalliance. This was also used in Genesis 26:8, where Abimelech catches Isaac playing with Rebekah. It can also mean to ridicule or mock or laugh, where we found this in Genesis 21:9, where Sarah catches Ishmael mocking Isaac. Here, Potiphar's wife can mean all the following definitions at once. Her husband has enabled Joseph to make lascivious advances, to ridicule her in rejecting her advances, and to insult the men of the house by his high position over them. A Hebrew slave versus Egyptian men. What do you think of all the wife's actions here? Is she the original Me Too gal? Please pause the presentation and jot down some of your thoughts. Joseph's response is also open to more than one reading. In verse 6 it says, now Joseph was handsome and good looking. On the one hand, it explains in part why Pontifar's wife took an interest in him. On the other hand, it presents a problem for Joseph's character. What is the responsibility of the beautiful ones? How should they present and carry themselves, and before whom and in what matter should they display themselves? The beautiful, we know, are easily beloved, but do they, we wonder, love back? Is beautiful Joseph a lover like his father before him? And if not, the biggest question, does it matter for his place in the life of Israel? Joseph does not run away, and he does not merely refuse. He's caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. He gives reasons why the answer to her proposition must be no. And once again, the content of his remarks is clear enough. My master trusts me beyond all bounds. To take the one thing he's withheld from me would be an act of heinous ingratitude and betrayal. Such a violation of my master's trust and my master's marriage would be a great evil and a sin against the divine. Joseph says that he refuses to violate the moral norms that opposed adultery and betrayal of trust, and to act in a way offensive to God. Yet, Joseph says things that make us suspect that there might be something a little haughty or self-righteous or even provocative in his tone and manner, according to Leon Cass. Does Joseph have to point out that he's the equal of her husband? See verse 9. It is therefore entirely possible that Joseph acts here not as an innocent who lives by piety and principle, moral principle, but as a charismatic fellow who enjoys exploiting his good looks, exercising his powers, and attracting others while displaying his own aloofness. In reality, it was, or could have been, Joseph who forced the issue, as he had done in his boyhood with his brothers, where he forced the issue of his dreams and favoritism of Jacob steadily, day by day, until the explosion came. In both instances, he'd played with his brother's hatred, and now he toys with a woman's love. In both instances, he was the active agent and set the pattern. Well, based on this information, did any of this change your mind about Joseph and how you understand his role within this story? Are you still on Team Joseph? Okay, did Joseph get pantsed? It is said that the clothes make the man. 2 garments, the coat of many colors and the undistinguished garment Pontifar's wife strips off him, end up contributing to his trials, each being a catalyst for his descent into Egypt and descent into prison in Egypt. The word garment is used 6 times in Genesis 39 in verses 12 through 18, calling attention to this key item in the story. Yet, in contrast to the coat of many colors, this garment appears to have been plain. Joseph more than once will lose his shirt to an angry and aggrieved opponent, first to his brothers and then to Pontifar's wife, and this is key. On both occasions, he is stripped of the external marks of his apparent superiority, only to find himself at risk for his life. True, he is in these episodes the victim of injustice, but it may also be true that the clothes he was wearing and the part they had him playing did not fit him. Bruce Cadden comments, Joseph does everything right, but his garments will betray him. Pontifar's wife shows the garment first to the household servants and then to her husband, accusing Joseph of trying to lie with her. Pontifar falsely concludes by looking at this garment that Joseph is guilty and immediately takes Joseph up to prison. And once again, Joseph's garment proves to be his undoing. Can you recall a time when clothes contributed to a downfall that you or someone you have known has experienced? Is it true that the clothes have to fit the man or the clothes will wind up exposing the man? What do you think? Appealing to the servant's solidarity with her as a fellow Egyptian over and against the mocking and outrageous Hebrew outsider, Pontifar's wife implies that Joseph's very supremacy in their master's service is an insult to all. So Pontifar is required to make a response. He apparently makes no response. It could be out of shock or disbelief. Leon Cass suggests that more than likely, he's vexed at the necessity of dealing with a problem that has for him only bad solutions. Pontifar is angry, but the text does not specify with whom. Pontifar has no choice but to punish Joseph. The matter has become public. His wife has witnesses, plus the cloak, and Pontifar is compelled to back his wife's story, whatever he may think about what really happened. Note that Pontifar does not decree the capital punishment that the offense ordinarily would warrant. Joseph again cast down, again narrowly escapes being put to death, and though put in a prison house, he's in good company among high-ranking prisoners of Pharaoh. Remarkably, Pontifar has even arranged to keep Joseph nearby. As we will learn later, Joseph's imprisonment is in the house of the captain of the guard. Genesis 40, verse 3, tells us that is in the house of Pontifar, the very house in which Joseph's alleged crime had taken place. So, what do you think of Pontifar's response? Do you think he acted with honor or necessity? Why or why not? Some questions to ponder a bit here. Can you recall a time when you were in the wrong place at the wrong time and had to account for your presence later? Did you suffer damage to reputation or opportunity or to your person? Were you able to defend yourself? Can you look back and see whether God was there to offer protection and help? Share some thoughts on this today with a friend. And most of all, God bless you. This series will continue with Joseph, Part 2B, Joseph in Prison, the Dreams of the Baker and the Cupbearer. Thank you for your kind participation in this study. May God bless you until we can study together again.